Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Rebirth of the Red Dragon. Self-discipline becomes stronger. Chapter 51. You didn't choose the ants. Shilin said, squinting the dragon eye. What if Chajal didn't hand over the parchment? With his own strength, did Chajal stop it? I see. The hope that Chajal had just raised was shattered and replaced by a trace of loneliness. A breeze blew through Zajir's hands, and the parchment in his hands drifted up and slowly came to Shilin's eyes. Shilin opened his mouth and swallowed the parchment into the second stomach without saying a word. Very decisive ants, for your honesty, I will spare the town of walls once. Next time, don't take things you shouldn't take. Shilin didn't commit a slaughter in the small town, it is still useful to keep this small town. Boom, the dragon unfolded his fire wing and left the town and disappeared into the sky, leaving only the residue of the ground and soldiers with all 4 feet up to the sky. But even if Shilin didn't slaughter the town, a small town known by the dragon was destined to go to the building. This time the dragon did not destroy the town. What should I do when the dragon comes again? So for safety, everyone is ready to move out of the town. Even moving in the desert is accompanied by risks, but in order to avoid the dragon, everything is worth it. Along the way, Olenna fell into contemplation. Is this the real majesty? Yes. Domineering plunder is the essence of the Red Dragon. If you want to negotiate with Red Dragon, you must at least put out some capital. For example, you are also a Red Dragon, or a Red Dragon of comparable strength. The 2 sisters Aisha and Aili were relieved. Fortunately, the map is still in the hands of the Mayor Chajie, otherwise if the map is lost, Shilin might kill them. Since there is no need to go back to the 2 sisters, Shilin's speed is faster than when he came, and he passed the Lengya tribe again during the period. There are more than 4,000 desert werewolves, and Shilin will suffer some injuries if he goes heads up. When he fully grows into a young dragon, he can push this tribe unscrupulously. But it doesn't matter, Shilin has his own family members and doesn't care about these things. It took a week or so when I came, but only 5 days when I went back. This was because Olenna and the others were hungry and needed to stop for a while. Noxus. On his own site, Shilin has to land gently, and he can't land indiscriminately. What if he collapses the dragon's den? Your Majesty the Great Red Dragon. You are finally back. When Shilin just landed on the site and put down Olenna's 3 daughters, Peeps and Ramos and a strange stranger came here. Who are you? Shilin looked at the strange magical beasts. The whole body is like a cactus, but the color is the earthy brown of the desert, a bit like a cactus. Your Majesty the Great Red Dragon, I am your humble servant, Salmon. Saman then briefly talked about On. It turns out that Saman was originally the leader of the Sandworm tribe. After Shilin left, Catalina led the army to conquer the Sandworm tribe. With the help of Katrina, Noxus ended all battles in just one morning, and the Sandworm tribe completely surrendered. And Saman is a sand palm, evolved from the cactus in the Death Desert. The whole body is covered with cactus thorns, but they are not as powerful as the back thorns of the armored dragon turtle, but they have a powerful place, they don't need to eat. As long as all Shazong people are thirsty and hungry and plunge directly into the desert, they can absorb nutrients from the depths of the desert. If there are any battles that require a long journey in the future, the Shazong people are the most suitable family members. Shilin didn't expect Katerina to surprise herself. But at this time Katerina was sleeping. She also reached a bottleneck at this moment, and it took a long time to sleep to be able to ascension power. Accept it for you, Aisha and Aili, 2 desert banshees, your new companions. Shilin looked at the 2 sisters Aisha and said, hello, my name is Peeps. My name is Ramos. Saman. The 3 monster leaders introduced themselves. It's just that none of them can afford these 2 sisters. The magic of the desert banshee is very powerful, but if it is not for the sacrifice of the desert banshee, then they are not afraid at all. Hello, I am Aisha and she is Aili. Aisha naturally saw the disdain of these 3 monsters, and she would prove On in the future. On the contrary, the hot-tempered Alice refused to accept. What are your eyes? We are all the servants of your Majesty. Your Majesty's dependents. When will you become a sacrifice? Come and talk to us again. Ramos was the first to fight back. He is different from the other 2 monsters, he is angry that these 2 people played with him. Fortunately, He has always vowed to rely on sand dogs to find them, but they turned out to be so disrespectful and covered up their breath. If your majesty hadn't understood magic, he would have been killed by his majesty for deceiving the king. Ha, isn't it just a sacrifice? I swear by the great red dragon. Only I can definitely evolve into a desert female demon sacrifice in 1 month. If not, I am willing to devote myself to your majesty's belly. Aili was completely angry, and directly pledged her life to Shilin to guarantee that she would succeed. Aisha was stunned by watching. Little sister, you are looking for death. The 3 Peeps monsters were slightly surprised when they heard it. They didn't expect this desert banshee to be so explosive. Well, if it doesn't reach it, I can just taste what the desert banshee is like. Shilin licked the corner of his mouth next to him. Alice, it's over, it's a big joke. Oh, Aisha silently raised her forehead and shook her head. Why is little sister so hearted? Now it doesn't have to be the past, we still have your majesty standing behind us. Ha, Ramos chuckled. He didn't expect this desert banshee to be really that rigid. Your majesty is behind, you really dare to say it. Shilin ignored the farce and took Olena and Peeps away from the place. Do you know the Wolfia tribe in the east? Shilin said as he walked. Knowing your majesty, we are preparing to send spies to see how many werewolves are in the Langya tribe. Peeps nodded, they were going to probe. No need to go, I came back from there, the number is about 4,000 or 5,000, basically can be on the battlefield at any time. Shilin has also observed the combat power of the desert werewolves, each of them is strong and physically strong, and there is no state that they cannot go on the battlefield. The werewolves have very powerful claws, and only Ramos and their armor can defend. Peeps said. Shilin nodded. The spikes of the armored dragon turtle can indeed restrain the claws of the desert werewolves, but unfortunately the number of armored dragon turtles is too small, otherwise the armored dragon turtle can be used to fight. Your Majesty, should we take a rest for a while and wait until the number of our tribes is ascending? Peeps cautiously suggested. When Shilin heard this, he stopped and said, how much combat power does the entire Noxus have? 500 for the Blade tribe, 800 for the Tooth tribe, 1,000 for the Sandworm tribe, a total of 2,003 combat power. Peeps said roughly after a rough estimate. 2,003. Too few. Shilin did not expect that the total number of Noxus people would not be as large as the Spike tribe. Although it is possible to win against the Spike tribe with these forces, some price must be paid. At least not a year or 2, Noxus will not recover. Your Majesty, only need to give me another period of time, I can definitely increase the number of Blade tribes to 2,000. Peeps said quickly after hearing Shilin's dissatisfaction. 2,000, what do you need to do? Shilin was slightly surprised. Dune raiders are oviparous animals, and have 1 child. It takes 2 months to incubate, and it takes 10 years to reach adulthood. 10 years. Shilin didn't have so much time for the attacker to develop. Your Majesty Red Dragon, the number of raiders in the entire Death Desert is still very objective. In the next time I will go to subdue those raiders' tribes one by one. At that time, the total number will reach 2,000, there is no problem at all. Peeps was so confident, the Death Desert was so big, he didn't believe that the attackers would die. The attackers' combat effectiveness is at a medium level in the desert, slightly weaker than the armored dragon turtle and the desert werewolf, and is first level higher than the sandman like Saman. But Shazong people multiply fast, they are genderless. You only need to pull out the thorns from your body and bury them in the sand. In just 1 week, a brand new small sand palm can be conceived, and it takes a year for the small sand palm to reach adulthood. The desert banshee is even more special, and their entire clan is female. If you want to reproduce offspring, you must find other male magical beasts to mate, but one thing is very peculiar, they will only be born as desert banshees. This is why the desert banshee will go to the human turf and have a spring breeze with some brave men. The lifespan of the desert banshees is between 500 years. In such a long lifespan, they will only reproduce 1 offspring, just to continue the desert banshee race. Their cubs, like humans, were born in October. Adulthood is the same as human beings, it takes 18 years. The armored dragon turtle is also an oviparous animal, with 10 eggs in a litter, hatching for half a year, and it takes 5 years to reach adulthood. In short, in the Noxus race, the sand palms are the fastest ascension race. Okay, I believe you. If you don't arrive, I won't be merciful. Shilin's sharp eyes looked at Peeps. Peeps seemed to have been cut by a knife at this moment, and hurriedly said, "Please rest assured, Your Majesty. There is absolutely no problem." Bang, bang, bang. After hearing Peeps's words, Shilin took Olena and left without looking back. "Your Majesty, actually there is a question I really want to ask you." Olena hesitated, and finally summoned the courage to ask. "Say." Shilin raised her brows. What else did Olena want to say? Olena exhaled and asked slowly, What is the reason you brought me here?" "Reason?" Shilin paused and said, "Why would you ask like that?" I don't know." Olena shook her head in confusion, and said, "It's just that I just suddenly felt like asking Your Majesty the Red Dragon." Suddenly, Shilin was the first to think of the Goddess of Luck. If it were not for the interference of the Goddess of Luck, how could Olena ask this sentence? Interesting. Shilin smiled softly in his heart. "Your Majesty Red Dragon. What's wrong with you?" Olena seemed to be thinking about something when she saw Shilin. She was a little frightened for a while, but the sentence just now ran into Your Majesty, and she was going to be eaten. "Nothing. Don't you want to know the reason?" "I can tell you." Shilin leaned down and the huge dragon head leaned against Olena's ear. The scorching heat rushed over her face, and Olena's swan-white neck was rendered with a red glow. Not only that, but Shui Lingling's face is even brighter and charming. "I want to eat you." After speaking, Shilin turned around and headed towards Longshe. "Only Olena, whose head is steaming, is left, and Your Majesty wants to eat me." Anyone with a discerning eye could understand what Shilin's mouth meant to eat. Ignoring Olena's expression behind him, Shilin came to Longshe on his own. "Bululu, Your Majesty, you are back." Akfor emerged from the lake. "Well, Katerina is inside, right?" Shilin asked symbolically. In fact, he already felt the breath of Katerina. "Yes, Your Majesty, His Royal Highness Catalina is inside." Akfor replied respectfully. As soon as he entered the dragon's cave, Shilin found that the appearance of the entire dragon's cave had changed. On the other side of her throne, a huge hole was dug out. Katerina was lying in a deep sleep, breathing only once in almost half a minute. The dragon's breathing is slow and it is still rich in backbone, which means that the dragon is sleeping, as long as it is not touching his treasure or making loud noises. Even if the dragon senses you, it won't wake up, because waking up suddenly from a deep sleep is extremely bad for the dragon's body. It is very likely that this time the promotion strength will fail. Because Shilin had a certain degree of ascension last time, the tasks of the system have changed drastically now. From 100 push-ups ascension to 1,000, so are the others. The main reward is too few, which makes Shilin feel that he is not rewarded. Fortunately, the system has also unlocked a sign in check-in. You only need to check in during exercise. This exercise does not require you to do as many. Congratulations to the host for successfully punching in the push-ups once and gaining power plus 50. Congratulations to the host for a successful punch in sit-ups and gain plus 50 physique. Congratulations to the host for successfully punching in the squat and gaining speed plus 50. Congratulations, host. Shilin. Creature. Red Dragon, Chaotic Evil. Attack. 1050 Ordinary Juvenile Red Dragon 300. Defense. 950 Ordinary Juvenile Red Dragon 200. Speed. 850 Ordinary Juvenile Red Dragon 150. Physique. 1150 Ordinary Juvenile Red Dragon 350. Items. Tiamat's Dragon Scales Demigod, Uranus's Hair Demigod, Zeus's Thunderbolt half. God. Magic. 100 kinds of 1-ring magic, 50 kinds of 2-ring magic, 35 kinds of 3-ring magic, 10 kinds of 4-ring magic. Talent. Superb physique, half god level, breaking potential god level, proficient in magic, spirit level. Abilities. Bite, tear, fire breath, frost breath, lightning breath, poisonous mist breath, acid breath. Evaluation. Now you have reached the threshold of a young dragon and have the capital to become a god. Congratulations to the host for completing the first check in exercise mission and activating a pillage princess mission. Princess of the Princess. Every time the princess of the kingdom is plundered, the total ascension is 100, the second ascension is 200, the third ascension is 300, and then upwards. Pillaging the Imperial Princess once, all-round Ascension 500, reward Ascension as mentioned above. Pillage the princess. Shilin never thought that this system was not serious. It is said that the reward for plundering the princess is so rich. Sure enough, to be a qualified dragon, you must plunder the princess. It's just that plundering the princess is very hated by humans. At that time, not only the Imperial Kingdom, but also some knights who wanted to marry the princess would chase and kill Shilin together. But as Shilin scared, waiting for him to plunder a few more times, it is estimated that even the gods in the sky are not opponents, and he will become a real god on the earth. In the end, it was no problem to surpass the dragon god Aurelian. Aurelian, the true dragon god, Tiamat only rations the dragon god's shoes. That's a big guy who can hold the planet in his hand. At the same level as Thanatos, the god of death, even as first level. Unexpectedly, he would eventually embark on this path. An evil dragon's road. The only thing that bothers Shilin now is that there is only magical beasts in this huge death desert. Where can there be any kingdom to plunder for itself? It seems that this plan has to be carried out later, at least I can't do it under current conditions. After occupying all the death desert to obtain the treasure of death, then set off outside. Shilin opened his mouth lightly, and he spat out a piece of parchment. A terrible breath. Shilin narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself. Only after reaching a certain level of strength can you feel the terrifying aura on this parchment, an aura that can crush all things. And this thing is just a piece of parchment that the other party has touched. Shilin carefully observed the parchment, but he wanted to see what was hidden in the parchment. About 10 minutes later, no matter how Shilin studied it, he found that it was just a piece of parchment, and the clues about the treasure of the god of death could not be revealed. What should I do? Shilin looked at the parchment floating in the air and wondered. He tried many methods, including the use of magic, and even he used the routines in film and television dramas. I put the parchment paper in the water, but there was no fart. The parchment paper does not seem to have received any influence, and it seems that even sheepskin is not ordinary sheepskin. Without saying anything, Shilin spit out pure flames from his mouth. The fireball, like a little sun, hit the parchment directly. The parchment, which had nothing at all, suddenly ignited at this moment. Shilin felt bad when he saw this, and the clues to the treasure he had finally obtained were about to be burned by himself. When he was about to use the frost breath to extinguish the flame, the sparks emanating from the parchment gradually drew a path in the air. This is Reaper's treasure. Shilin's eyes widened, and he didn't expect to make a mistake by accident. This is indeed the root of the treasure map of the god of death. Soon, Mars disappeared in midair, and everything turned into nothingness. But Shilin had already remembered how the route on the map looked like, and the memory of the dragon was very powerful. That is the memory that can remember the breath of the enemy thousands of years ago. Not knowing that, Shilin also saw a few words on the map, which were the words of the gods. It's just that Shilin only knows that this is the text of the gods, and knows nothing else. After all, there is no meaning of the words about gods in the dragon's memory. Didn't it mean that this is a broken map? Shilin was a little puzzled. Through the observations he had just observed, he clearly remembered that this map was complete. Until the desert palace, there was nothing incomplete. In other words, after the passage of time, the legend has become a bit distorted. Anyway, this time I got what I wanted most, the map of death's treasures. The desert werewolf in the east didn't seem so important at this moment, and the treasure of death needs to be put on the agenda. Just in case, Shilin decided to wait for Catalina to wake up before going together. Catalina's inverse scales were rewarded by the dragon mother Danielle. Not only is it to prove the identity of Katrina, the most important thing is that Daniel's protection magic is hidden there. The protection of an ancient red dragon can basically defeat any enemy injured by the Western fantasy continent. When you bring Olena, everything will look perfect. 1 month later. Roar, big brother. Katerina had already felt the breath on Shilin's body, and now she woke up and couldn't wait to run next to Shilin. Strength ascension is great. Shilin observed Katrina's data and said. Name, Catalina. Biology, silver dragon mixed species. Attack, 250 ordinary young red dragon 100. Defense, 200 100 ordinary young red dragon. Speed, 300 ordinary juvenile red dragon 90. Physique, 300 ordinary juvenile red dragon 120. Item, Danier's Blessed Dragon Scale, Spirit Level. Magic, 300 kinds of 1 ring magic, 22 ring magic, 1 3-ring magic. Talent, the Darling of Magic God Level, the Premonition of the Gods God Level. Abilities, Bite, Tear, Flame Breath, Frost Breath. Evaluation, a young dragon with strong potential, qualified as a dragon in the future. Sure enough, the dragon only needs a period of deep sleep, and there can be a huge ascension of strength injury. This is something that countless races cannot envy. Big brother, when did you come back? Katerina asked. She herself felt the breath of Shilin 1 week before she was about to wake up. Shilin must have come back earlier. A month ago, Shilin replied. Night. Every time the dragon awakens, he has to eat a lot of food to regain his strength. There was a high bonfire burning in the middle of the desert forest tonight, and the monsters of Noxus gathered here to enjoy these delicacies. Ahahaha, cheers, peeps, not drunk or returning tonight. Ha, Green Turtle, it is impossible for you to win me. The leaders of the 3 tribes are competing for alcohol here. After discovering grapes, Shilin taught magical beasts how to brew wine. Delicious. Olena took a bite of the horned lizard meat, which was tender and juicy, and full of energy. Shilin grabbed a grilled horned lizard, bit it on the horned lizard's thigh, then pulled it hard, and swallowed it whole in his stomach. Yes, it would be nice if there were seasonings. Shilin felt the taste in his mouth and returned to the taste. It's a pity that there is no material here, otherwise all the horned lizards are made into barbecue, which must be very good. Seasoning, Olena asked with interest when hearing the chewing. Your Majesty Red Dragon, have you ever been to human territory? No, but I know these. Shilin ignored the small town automatically. Human stuff, what's good? Katerina scorned when she heard it next to her. She hates Olena a bit now, don't know why, she always feels Olena will take her big brother away, and big brother can only be her own. Sorry, Your Majesty Katerina. Olena quickly lowered her head, knowing that Katerina was angry. I don't know why, since His Royal Highness Catalina awakened, her attitude towards Own seemed to be less friendly. Although it was not very good before, at least the attitude will not be that bad. Don't say that, Katerina, there are a lot of interesting things in humans. Shilin smiled softly and recalled the story before his rebirth. That memory is pretty good, but I don't know what will happen to my parents when I have come to another world, but fortunately I have a little brother. At least little brother can help himself to obey his parents. Katerina rolled her head angrily, and now big brother is helping the little girl to speak. His Royal Highness Katerina, Olena whispered softly. Catalina was unhappy when she heard it. What's the matter, servant, hurry up, it's boring. There is a residue at the corner of your mouth. Olena chuckled. Katerina licked the corner of her mouth and found that there was really a piece of meat. Olena covered her mouth and smiled. In fact, as long as you get along with Katerina for a long time, you can find that Katerina's personality is a bit like a human little girl. His Royal Highness Catalina, you will know after you have been to the human empire. Olena was surprised that the dragon Shilin could speak for herself. In fact, the former Shilin was also human. When I reach the human empire, I will eat them all. Catalina said with disdain. Olena's mouth twitched. Okay, let's not talk about it. Catalina, what do you think of the Wolfang tribe? Shilin wants to take a test of this little sister. The Spike tribe. Of course it is to defeat them. Let them surrender to our Noxus. Catalina said without hesitation. Shilin glanced silently and said, of course I know this. What I am asking you now is, how do you conquer? It's so simple. Big brother, you and I lead the monsters of Noxus all the way to the past. A group of desert werewolves can't stop me and big brother from your attack. In front of our giant dragons, they are just a group of chickens. Katerina prefers to use strength to crush the past directly, rather than using plans. Then have you ever thought that after this battle, we in Noxus will have to cultivate for more than 10 years? Shilin said in a bad mood. My little sister is really not suitable for leading the battle. 10 years, so short. Katerina tilted her head, isn't that just time to sleep? Quote. Shilin almost forgot that they are now giant dragons. Forget it, I won't mention this for the time being, you two will come to Longshay to find me in the evening. Shilin didn't want to continue discussing this topic, grabbed the grilled horned lizard and stuffed it into his mouth. At night, go to. Your Majesty. Olenna succeeded and wanted to get crooked again, but why did Your Majesty call His Royal Highness Catalina? Could it be, this is too shameful. Tonight, the monsters sang all the way in Noxus, all drunk, fell to the ground and fell asleep. Dragon Cave. Big brother, what are you looking for with us? Catalina walked in with Olenna curling her tail. Lingalingling, ringalingling. Numerous gold coins were spit out from Shilin's mouth, and a small golden mountain was piled up on the throne. These are gold coins. Katerina looked at her eyes shining brightly, and as a dragon she also liked these things. Olenna didn't have the feeling that she liked very much, but her eyes widened in surprise. After all, she came from a small village, and it was the first time she saw so many gold coins. Shilin piled up the gold coins in every corner of his position, and then sat comfortably in his position. Katerina, do you remember what your mother said? Shilin said. Remember, big brother. Katerina retracted her gaze and nodded. I found the map of Reaper's treasure, and I already know the route. You two will come with me tomorrow. Shilin can't wait for this. The treasure of the gods, no matter how bad it is, it won't be too bad. Really, big brother. Katerina was overjoyed first, and then heard that Olenna would also go. The happy little face suddenly drooped and said, Big brother, is Olenna going too? Well, Olenna must go. Shilin looked at Olenna. I hope Olenna is here and can use her luck to help her find the treasure of death. Katerina, who didn't understand the situation, was jealous again, but she didn't expect Big Brother to look at Olenna this way. Little did she know that in terms of her age, Olenna was 14 years old at any rate, much older than Katrina, a 3-year-old dragon. Me. Olenna was really surprised. Shilin couldn't avoid herself when discussing the treasure, and even let herself follow. In other words, why does Your Majesty have to take her with her every time she travels? It's good to go out for a spin, but every time I spin at high altitude, Olenna said that she couldn't stand it. Right, Shilin nodded. After hearing Shilin's answer, Olenna seemed to be able to see tomorrow's high-altitude journey. By the way, big brother, I don't know if you noticed that we can't see the desert forest in the sky. Katerina suddenly remembered this incident and immediately reported back to Shilin. Well, I found out about this too. As Shilin, who has gone out many times, naturally also discovered this strange phenomenon. Obviously the desert forest is under my feet, but I can't see anything from the sky above, I can only see it when it is 10 meters high from the desert forest. At first, Shilin thought the desert forest was just a mirage, but the desert forest turned out to be real. Then why can't it be seen in the sky? It's just that Shilin doesn't bother to continue thinking about it now, the treasure of death is the top priority. You go to rest, especially your Olenna, you have to cheer up tomorrow. Zilai looked at Olenna playfully, the day of fear of heights is coming again. I understand. Olenna's face suddenly turned pale, and at this moment she lost her blood. Katerina gave Olenna a suspicious look, what happened to this guy? Morning. When I'm away, Ramos, you come to temporarily manage Noxus. Shilin handed this important task to Ramos. The reason why it was not handed over to Peeps was because Peeps had to perform his own mission to subdue the attackers. I understand, Your Majesty. Ramos will definitely take care of Noxus. Swear by my soul. Ramos quickly fell to his knees, swearing by his soul to show his determination. Shilin glanced at Noxus briefly, and the surrounding sandy city walls had already begun to be built. After all, it was the Red Dragon Empire, and none of them lost to the Empire. Is that still an empire? Boom. The hurricane set off at this moment and turned into a whirlwind raging in Noxus. Shilin had disappeared in Noxus with Katrina and Olenna. Sky. Olenna closed her eyes, comforting herself in her heart. This is on land, this is on land. Big brother, is the desert palace far from here? Katerina asked when she approached. It takes about a day to reach the true center of the Death Desert. Shilin said, recalling the route on the map. After hearing this, Katerina said excitedly, I don't know what kind of treasure we can get this time. I look forward to it. I'll know it later. Shilin smiled slightly, and he was also very excited. When I was a child, I liked to play treasure hunts with my friends, burying myself and digging myself. But that's all fake, and now it's a real treasure. One red and one silver figure was flying in the sky. During that time, when it was time for lunch, Shilin grabbed a horned lizard and ate it without any need to roast it. With this huge melting pot of stomach, even if it is not cooked, it will naturally lose when it reaches the stomach. On the other hand, Olena eats the leftovers from Shilin and cooks them with flames. Katerina prefers to spit on a layer of frost, so that she can cool her whole body a bit. The next day, bang, bang, two falling sounds appeared in the center of the desert, setting off a dust of tens of meters high. Are you here, big brother? Why don't I see anything? Katerina looked around suspiciously. There were only small sand dunes, not a single shadow of the desert palace. The hurricane is coming, the hurricane is coming. Shilin suddenly blew wind magic, and a breeze formed quietly beside him. Gradually, the breeze turned into a sandstorm with a height of 100 meters in the blink of an eye, rolling up countless sands. Olena raised her arm subconsciously, and Shilin took the initiative to unfold the dragon wings to cover the dust for her. Katerina's wings stood in front of her, resisting the baptism of the sandstorm. Soon, the sandstorm passed, and an underground cave appeared in front of the two of them. Look at Big Brother, Katerina exclaimed excitedly. Let's go. Shilin smiled and walked in with Katrina and Olena. Two pairs of glowing eyes appeared in the dark crypt, one pair exuding a frosty blue. One pair exudes fire like the sun. Ha! Shilin blew lightly, and the surrounding candlesticks lit up from near to far. Olena was also able to restore her vision. They continued to walk down, going deeper and deeper, and finally blocked by a gate. It's so big. Olena looked up at the door in shock. Not only Olena thinks it is big, but even the two giant dragons Katrina and Shilin think this door is too high. Shilin's body is 20 meters long, and the height of his four-legged shoulders is also 9 meters. As a result, he still needs to look up at the door. This gate is also at least 200 meters high, and it seems to be made of a special material. It looked like sand, but Shilin scratched it with his sharp claws and couldn't even leave a trace. Your Majesty, look. Olena noticed the pattern in the center of the door. Shilin immediately grabbed Olena and flew. Katerina followed closely. When flying to a height of 100 meters, Shilin found a strange 5 patterns in the center of the gate. These 5 patterns are a bit like the series of characters in the previous life, and it seems that the patterns can be moved. Things above seem to be movable, Your Majesty. Olena lay on Katerina's back and said, pointing to the pattern on it. Yeah, click. Shilin stretched out his paw and tried to push the circular pattern on it, but it really pushed. It's just that the door doesn't seem to respond. This should be the mechanism that opens the door, but now I don't know what the password is. Shilin now understands that the map is really only incomplete. How could a truly complete map even lack a password? The door in front of me seemed to be made of materials from the gods, and there was no record of this material in the memory of the dragons, and the most important thing was that they couldn't break it. If it can be broken, Shilin will not care about the password. Shilin can probably guess that behind the gate is the desert palace of his dream. Bang! At this moment, Catalina, who was impatient next to her, tried a tail whip and hit the gate. There was a rumbling sound from the entire gate, some sand fell from the top of the head, and then there was no response. It hurts, Katerina said, clutching her tail. She never thought that the door was so strong, and her own tail could not even leave a trace. Save your energy, Catalina, don't forget that this fell from the god realm. With our mortal power, it is impossible to open it. Unless we know the password for this door, we may only stop here. Shilin looked at the steel gate, his eyes revealing unwillingness. There was only one step away from the treasure, but I ended up stuck here. It can be imagined now that the countless treasures are separated by a gate distance. Big brother, are we going to give up? Katerina flicked the pattern above, hoping to get the right one. Give up? How is it possible? Shilin won't give up this treasure. Since there are all the map routes, there will be no clues for unreasonable passwords. Your Majesty, have you noticed that this word resembles a desert forest? Olena said suddenly. Shilin suddenly raised his head when he heard it. Wait, the desert forest seems to be invisible in the sky, but it is clearly visible on the ground. Does this have anything to do with the Desert Palace Gate Code? Katerina, how many desert forests are in the Death Desert? Shilin asked in order to verify his own conjecture. 5. Katerina replied immediately. During the battle, Noxus also figured out the desert forests in the Death Desert. There were 5 in total. Noxus accounted for 4, and 1 was in the Spike tribe. I see. A hint of joy appeared on Shilin's face, and there were exactly 5 patterns on the door. The desert forest of the Lengya tribe is to the east. Shilin moved the pattern on the right and pushed it to the far east. Then, the first desert forest is in the south, and the desert forest close to the Toothy tribe is in the north. And behind the Tooth tribe there is a desert forest, at the far north, and finally the desert forest of the Sandworm tribe, at the far west. The clash of patterns sounded on the door, and Katerina and Olena behind Shilin watched the movements in his hands intently. It was dazzling to see. Finally, click, boom, an ancient breath came from the gate, and the gate opened. Booming, the door slowly opened to both sides, and all the sand on the top was spilled, and it seemed that the entire cave was about to collapse at the next moment. Not good, your lord. This cave is going to collapse. Olena reminded anxiously. If the cave collapses, they will all be buried here. Don't worry, Olena. Shilin glanced at Olena lightly and said. As giant dragons, they are not afraid of being buried in the soil, and they can't die anyway. Just sleep directly in the soil for hundreds of years, and when it grows to become an adult dragon, it is not simple and easy to come out of the soil. Olena wants to cry without tears. Your dragon can sleep, but I can't. When you wake up, I will become a bone. The cave was shaking for half a minute, and after a lot of sand fell in the dust, it finally stopped. Shilin was a little doubtful whether Olena's lucky talent had happened. Big brother, look. Catalina's twin dragons were staring at the boss, and her eyes were shining forward. Shilin heard the sound and saw that what was placed in front of them was a golden desert palace. A 500-meter-high idol was placed in the center. When the 2 dragons saw the eyes of the god statue, at that moment they seemed to have their souls caught. Death the underworld. Interestingly, a red dragon is actually followed by a silver dragon. When did the Queen Tiamat have such a good relationship with Bahamut? In the wailing of countless souls, a god covered by a black cloak is sitting on a throne cast by countless life sacrifices. Oh, there is even her avatar. Interesting, interesting. The god of death Thanatos saw the appearance of the lower realm through the idol. He did not expect that the 5-colored dragon would eventually obtain this treasure. I don't know what height the 5-color dragon will reach in the end after getting his own treasure. Can you surpass the dragon Queen Tiamat? If it could, Thanatos thought of this, and the muddy face could be seen with a hint of joy. This has created a new god. The detection host is spied on the soul by Thanatos, the god of death, and now defensive measures are activated. Are you going to counterattack Thanatos' Eye of Death? Shilin was pulled back to reality by a sound from the system. Just now, he seemed to have been in an endless sea of blood, where there was no trace of any creatures. Worthy of being a god of death, he easily pulled the current self into the illusion. As for the counterattack, Shilin did not choose to confirm. Who knows if Thanatos can go to the lower realm? If he can do it, then Shilin is at stake. Now that own strength can't be against the gods, it takes some time to grow. As long as you grow up, slinging the gods is not a dream. Taking a look at Catalina and Olena who were still in the illusion, Shilin did not choose to wake them up. Thanatos not only simply pulled them back to the illusion, but the most important thing was to pull their souls out. Wake them up rashly now, it is likely to scare their souls away. Now Shilin also understands one thing. It turns out that the strongest thing in him is not the inverse scale, but the soul. The soul is protected by a system. Even Thanatos, who knows how to play with the soul, can't hurt his soul. This is the power of the system. Shilin walked towards the back of the idol, and there was a treasure chest waiting for him in the back. The size of the treasure is a bit ordinary. It's just a wooden box of normal size, and there is nothing special about it. Handprint. Shilin saw the groove on the wooden box and seemed to press his hand. In the past, I would definitely be vigilant, and I would never have to do experiments on my own if I was not sure. But after knowing that the system protects the soul, it hurts, isn't it just Mudra? I will press as much as you want. Without saying anything, Shilin pressed his right paw down. Click. After pressing Shilin's paws, the wooden box slowly opened outwards. A dazzling golden light shone outward, a golden legend. When the wooden box is completely opened, there are countless gold and silver treasures inside, and these gold and silver treasures are not mortal gold and silver treasures, they come from the gods. Among these treasures, there are 5 red glaze-like gems. Item: Soul Gem. Level: God level. Function: absorb the soul gem, your soul will be strengthened 100 times. Origin: the ornament on the body of the legendary god of death Thanatos has the effect of enhancing the soul. There are 5 soul gems in total, but Shilin doesn't need them. Shilin must have been very excited in the past, but now he has a look of disdain. Even Thanatos can't help his soul, so why do you want this soul gem? However, this thing was also god level. Shilin opened his mouth and swallowed the treasure into his second stomach. The dragon's second stomach is very magical. It is similar to the extra space created by the rules of space, and the size depends on the strength of the dragon. For example, Shilin's, his second stomach is enough to swallow 100 tons of things. After devouring the treasure on the surface, Shilin actually saw a button switch in the treasure chest. This god of death is quite good at getting things done. Just now, Big Brother, Your Majesty. 2 voices came from behind Shilin at the same time, and Katerina and Olena finally woke up. How are you feeling? Is there any discomfort in your body? Shilin did not press the switch, but turned around and asked with concern. Katerina shook her head and said, "There is no Big Brother, but I just seem to be back in the Flame Mountains." Flaming Mountains. Shilin is keenly aware that everyone's illusion is different. The Flame Mountains. Is that place the Flame Mountains? It's so beautiful. Olena recalled the scene in her mind just now. It was a fairyland on earth. The Flame Mountains. Beautiful. The corner of Shilin's mouth twitched. If he looked at it from the eyes of a red dragon, the blazing mountains would of course be beautiful and comfortable. But from a human point of view, the environment is harsh. Did you see it? Shilin understood that Olena's scene was different. Olena replied in a puzzled way. I saw a lot of golden palaces, which seem to be built on a blue sky and white clouds. It's very quiet there, and the walls are made of precious pearls, gold, diamonds and other things. I also saw the river flowing inside. It seemed to be filled with every life. There was a towering tree in the center, which seemed to reach the zenith. Later I saw a goddess with shining blonde hair. She just turned her head, and I woke up. A little regretful on Olena's face, she thought she could spy on the face of the goddess. The figure alone is so extraordinary, sacred as dignified and pure. Hearing Olena's description, Shilin's lava-like pupils shrank. Others didn't know what Olena was describing. Could he not know? Olena is the incarnation of Goddess of Luck, which means that she just went to the kingdom of Goddess of Luck. Even almost saw the Goddess of Luck. The death god Thanatos dared to pull Olena's soul there, not afraid of the revenge of the Goddess of Luck. You know, Goddess of Luck and Death are gods of the same level. If the 2 parties really want to fight, the god realm must have some turbulence. I have to say that Thanatos is a bit big. But what's the matter with you? You'd better fight. Anyway, you are in the Western Fantasy continent. Why is this treasure chest empty? Did you take Big Brother? Katerina looked at the treasure chest with excitement, but there was nothing but nothing. Well, I took it away. Now there is a button inside. I'm considering whether to press it or not. Shilin is not afraid of hurting his soul, but he is afraid of hurting his body. If this is an incredible institution, what should I do? Big Brother, the treasure chest of the god of death is absolutely impossible to have only this wooden box-sized treasure chest. There must be something left. Katerina didn't believe that death would be so shabby. After thinking twice, Shilin decided to press the switch. Click. The switch shrank underneath, and the rumbling sound came from the desert palace again, but it was not clear where the sound was. His Majesty. Olena lay on Katerina's back and saw the sight of her back. Hearing Olena's voice, Katerina and Shilin turned around and saw that the most important idol gradually opened at this moment. Ah, I finally came out. A 100-meter tall giant walked out from there, wearing ragged armor, and his fingernails were black and dull, and it looked like he had been sealed inside for a long time. The chin is full of scum, the hair on the top of the head is as messy as a chicken coop, the teeth in the mouth are jagged, and a few of them are even rotted. It turned out to be a dragon. It's great. The dragon meat will be eaten as soon as it comes out. As soon as the giant came out, he saw Shilin and Katerina. As for the little bit above Olena, he simply ignored them. Okay, what a big giant, Olena said shiveringly. She thought Shilin was big enough, but she didn't expect there to be a giant more than 100 meters high. Most importantly, it's so ugly. You humble giant dare to provoke the dragon. Katerina scolded with fiery eyes. It's a pity that the giant doesn't eat Catalina. The giant has the blood of the god of Titan. Who is the Titan? That is the mortal enemy of the entire dragon clan. The grievances between the two parties are as deep as fire. After meeting, either you die or I forget. In addition, the strength of this giant has reached the strength of the young dragon. The dragon, ha ha ha, are you two little ones? Not enough, Daddy, I'm stuffing my teeth. The dragon didn't directly attack Shilin and them, but knelt down and taunted. He was trapped in the stone statue by Tanithus for 1,000 years. Had it not been for Tanithus to curse him for immortality, he would have starved to death or died in the stone statues. There would be no day to see the light of day again. Although the giant is very hungry nowadays, he is not in a hurry. Compared with hunger, he has to solve the boring first. He wants to chat with Shilin and the others before having a meal. Don't you just live longer than us? Katerina said with disdain. Owen's mother, Danier, has a body over 60 meters long. This is just the size of the ancient dragon's body. If it is the upper ancient dragon, the body is a full 100 meters long. Yes, yes, do you know that my life is better than death these years? The giant became angry with embarrassment. Living so embarrassingly, it's better to just die. I can't fall asleep like a giant dragon, and I can also ascension strength. He was supposed to have reached the strength of the primordial dragon, but because of the reason that he had been sealed in the idol, his strength barely reached the standard of the young dragon. Not even the level of an adult dragon. If you let a giant dragon sleep for 1,000 years, it would be the strength of an adult dragon. You were sealed in the idol by him, Shilin asked suddenly at this moment. Yes, it's him. That. The giant also wanted to insult Tanithos, but when he thought of Tanithos's own methods, it was like a dumb firecracker, and he dared to speak up. He is very powerful. We have no power to fight back. He is invincible, nor can the great Titan god Cronus be his opponent. The giant said with a lonely face. He lost his bloody struggle. Even the own gods no longer trust beliefs. Are you so afraid of him? Shilin didn't say Tanithos' name, in case Tanithos heard their conversation. As long as you say the name of the god, Tanithos can sense it. It's just that there are so many worlds, and almost everyone is praying to the gods all the time. Some gods simply stop listening to prayers, unless they are insulting them. So, sometimes you praise a god to attract his attention. It is better to scold him severely, and he will immediately look at you. Yes, I am. The giant slumped on the ground, making a dull sound of heavy objects falling, and he lost the fighting spirit of the giant. I have been sealed here for 1,000 years. For a whole 1,000 years, the lifespan of our giant is not as long as that of a dragon. We can only live for 2,000 years in total, and I am now 1,500 years old. Do you know how I came alive? The giant cannot sleep. He will be hungry all the time. The giant went crazy again after mentioning this topic. He was hungry. He was going to have a meal. Xiaolong, we were talking pretty well. I will bite your head in one bite. You won't feel the pain. The giant suddenly stretched out his big hand and grabbed them at Shilin. Ah! Olena closed her eyes in fear and screamed. Catalina has a heavy face. Are they going to die here today? Only Shilin's face is calm, afraid that you won't come. Smelly giant. Katerina quickly backed away from the giant's hand with Olena on her back. The giant is not annoyed when his big hands fail. He likes this cat and mouse game, the more exciting the better. Shilin took the opportunity to fly into the air and opened his own dragon mouth wide. A fiery ball of fire gradually formed in the mouth, and the intense high temperature even drove the surrounding air. The terrifying Long Wei also followed, pressing on the shoulders of the giant. Ha ha, Xiaolong, your Long Wei is just drizzle to me. The giant smiled disdainfully. In the past, the long way of bailing seemed useless on giants. It's not that Long Wei is not good, but that the giant is too strong. The long way of the young dragon alone can't crush him at all. At this moment, bang! The powerful dragon's breath spouted from Shilin's mouth and turned into a ferocious fire dragon flying in midair, and slammed into the giant at swift speed. The stout dragon's breath hit the giant's chin, and the messy beard burned at the next moment. What? Feeling the burning of the chin, the giant hurriedly stretched out his hands and kept tearing off his beard, lest the flames continue to expand. With the beating of the giant, the dragon's breath gradually extinguished, leaving only a little spark with red light on his chin. This is dragon's breath. Why is it so powerful? The giant looked at Shilin in front of him, with some surprise in his heart. He had never heard of the young dragon's breath so powerful. Originally, the breath of a young dragon couldn't hurt him at all. As a result, this red dragon just spit out the dragon's breath with the power of a young dragon from its mouth, which was incredible. The flame just burned him. I have changed my mind now. I will slowly chew you up. Make you feel the pain. Boom. The giant pulled off the stone pillar next to him, waved the stone pillar in his hand, and slammed it towards Shilin. Boom. Shilin dexterously avoided the giant's attack. What? Seeing that Shilin was unscathed, the giant picked up the rocks like madness and wanted to smash Shilin down. But Shilin easily avoided, relying on speed. Giant, for 1,000 years, you have lost your mind. Shilin mocked. Although giants are experts at hand-to-hand combat, they are not so reckless. They are more like a group of soldiers, know how to use fighting skills and wear weapons. But the giant in front of him only knew how to roar like a beast, incapable of being angry, but it was of no avail. I won't play with you. Shilin didn't bother to continue pestering the giant. The reason why he chatted with the giant just now was because Shilin had the idea of subduing the giant. This was a giant with a height of 100 meters. Although his current strength has dropped drastically, as long as he is given a certain amount of time, he can definitely return to the standard of the primordial dragon's strength. At that time, he has a subordinate with the strength of Taiku dragon. How beautiful it is to take it out. But the giant in front of him disappointed himself too much. This is not a giant, just a crazy wild dog. Katarina. Shilin called Katarina's name. Come on, big brother. Catalina flew up to Shilin's side. Olena is still the dragon scales with her eyes closed and Katrina tightly. What should I do? Your Majesty is no longer a giant's opponent. Shilin didn't say much, and directly stretched out his paw and pulled Catalina's reverse scale. Read. Katarina understood the meaning of Big Brother at this moment. The great dragon mother of flames, my mother, Danielle Electo Moji Letishifan. Please show up at this moment and protect your young child. Catalina was chanting Daniel's real name quickly, and she wanted to activate the shelter magic that Danielle left behind. When the talk is over. Roar. A roar from the ancient dragon sounded from Katrina's position against the scales. The giant, who was still preparing to attack, was so frightened that he stopped his hand movements by the sudden roar, and looked at Catalina in a daze. A red dragon more than 60 meters long appeared on this battlefield. The 4 feet that stepped in the air, and the dragon wings on the back seemed to be able to cover the sky. A pair of lava ball-like dragon pupils stared at the giant, and the dragon prestige that was 100 times stronger than Shilin swept over. Longway squeezed the giant like the water in the deep sea. Bang! The giant lay on the ground and wanted to struggle, but in this mighty dragon, it was of no avail. The phantom of Danielle appeared in front of the giant like a big mountain. The giant looked up at Danielle, his eyes filled with despair. Why is there an ancient red dragon here? The giant roared hoarsely. He was not reconciled. It's you, a foul and dirty giant who dares to beat my children's idea. Are you getting impatient? Danielle's angry eyes stared at the giant. Their gazes were like sharp blades, cutting the giant's body. No, I don't dare, the giant shouted in panic. Giant, you look like a wild dog, wagging your tail and begging for mercy from your master. Danielle's voice was like the thunder rolling in the sky, and it was terribly suppressed. Yes, I beg your master, let me leave my life. The giant actually lay on the ground altogether, swaying his ass with spicy eyes, and begging for Daniel's mercy. The real giant, even if it is dead, will never kneel in front of the enemy. Chapter 61. Dirty and humble, is this a giant? Humph. Denier didn't think it was interesting at all, and the giants he thought were not like this. It was the first time that she met such a giant who was greedy for life and fear of death. In order to survive, he even kneeled to his mortal enemy dragon. Yes, giant is a dirty species. Please spare my life as a bug. The giant really didn't even want to lose his face in order to live. You really don't deserve to live in this world. Daniel's huge and hideous dragon head lifted slightly, and the hot flames condensed in the nasal cavity. Do not. The giant wanted to stand up and escape, but Longwei firmly controlled him. You can't do this. I was cursed by death to be immortal. The giant shouted in horror. Humph. A ball of raging fire broke away from Daniel's nose and struck towards the giant. No, the giant desperately said. 100-meter wide fire swallowed the giant's body, uttered desperate shouts, and some vicious words. In the end, less than a quarter of an hour, only a black scum was left on the spot. Danielle, who had done everything, looked back at Shilin and Catalina. Shilin, Katerina, my children, are you okay? Daniel smiled rarely. Mother, Shilin and Katerina said in unison. Daniel looked at the surrounding scenery, thoughtfully. You really found this place? That's why our mother asked us to come. Shilin asked. Yes, I didn't have a chance to find here 100 years ago. It became the biggest regret in my life. Now, Shilin, you help me finish this regret. I am very pleased that you are my child, Shilin. Of course you have Katerina, and so are you. Daniel recalled that the gaze at Shilin and Katrina was no longer the sharpness to the enemy, but the tenderness that belonged to the mother. Mother. The two dragons wanted to hug Daniel, but they all passed through Daniel's body. Danielle smiled softly. This is my projection, there is no entity, you can't touch it. Then mother, do you know how we are here? Catalina asked curiously. Of course, after my projection disappears, everything that happened will pass back to my body. Daniel said. Afterwards, Danielle even saw the human on Katerina's back. Katerina, you shouldn't let a human taint the back of a real dragon. Daniel is angry. How can a little human sit on a giant? There was a trace of panic on Katerina's face, while Elena's face paled with fright. Please wait for mother, I called little sister to do this. Shilin took the initiative to explain. Originally, Danielle had finally accepted Catalina this kind of mixed race, but don't make her mother hate Catalina again because of this incident. You call it. Why do you want to do this, Shilin? Even if your little sister is a hybrid, it is a real dragon, human. Humph, not worthy. Daniel was still a little angry when she heard Shilin's idea. Silent wall. Shilin directly used the special silent magic, and spread out an invisible and transparent wall around it. What happened? Daniel understood that Shilin had something important to tell herself. Otherwise, by virtue of the relationship between the two siblings, they will not avoid each other. Mother, I wonder if you have ever heard of the incarnation of gods? Shilin asked. The incarnation of the gods. Where did you know it? Daniel really knew this. Shilin was overjoyed, and as expected, he was a little bit alive and knew more. It is said that for Ascension's long-standing strength, the gods will use their own souls. Create an avatar that is equivalent to a child of the gods. The gods will plunge the avatar into the thousands of worlds and let the avatar start again. It is not a necessary moment. The gods will not control the avatar. After the avatar becomes a god in the posture of a mortal, the gods will swallow the avatar at this moment to Ascension's own strength. Danielle tells everything about the incarnation of the gods. It turned out to be so. Shilin suddenly realized, isn't it that Olena is destined to become the nourishment of the goddess of luck in the future? Because I was still envious of Olena's talent in front of me, I didn't expect her to be so miserable. After working hard to become a god from the mortal world, in the end it is the nourishment for the gods. Where did you know this? Daniel was puzzled. I really knew it because I had been rewarded by Dragon Queen Tiamat before and knew about the incarnation of the gods. You see this little girl, she is the incarnation of the goddess of luck. Zilai glanced back at Olena without leaving a trace. What? The incarnation of the goddess of luck. At this moment, even Danny's eyes widened in surprise. It was incredible, Olena turned out to be the incarnation of the goddess of luck. That is a god stronger than Dragon Queen Tiamat. No wonder you would agree to her riding on Katerina. Danielle also understood Shilin's approach. Then Danielle suddenly thought of something and hurriedly said, Shilin, you must not touch Olena. If you want to, you can find own little sister Katrina, and you can even come to me, of course, as long as you don't dislike it. If you don't, you can't hit Olena's mind anyway. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Shilin suddenly heard his face stunned. What the hell, why did Denier mention this suddenly? Also, even if Katharina, why did you still say that you can find your mother, cough cough cough. Although the dragons do not care about this. But if you really want to find me, at least you have to be stronger. Denier thought Shilin was struggling with this. This mother, I don't have any thoughts in this regard. Shilin didn't expect Denier to go to that place. When Denier was about to say something, she suddenly felt something. Then the huge dragon wing lightly flapped, and the silent wall built around disappeared. Shilin, I am very optimistic about your growth. The power of projection will disappear. Remember not to touch her. Katarina, follow you, big brother. Danielle looked at Catalina, and then gradually disappeared into nothingness. The last piece of bright red dragon scale was spinning in midair, and gradually flew towards Katrina, inserting it in the position of her inverted scale. Today's scale magic has completely dissipated, leaving only the role of defense. Big brother, what did you just say? Katarina asked her curiously when she saw her mother leave. Nothing. How could Shilin tell Katarina about these things? But why did Danielle keep telling herself not to touch Olena? Could it be? Goddess of Luck can see all this. Thinking of this, Shilin didn't know what to say. Mother, your advice seems to be a little late. Saying that I watched Olena completely, this Goddess of Luck shouldn't be so stingy. Although Olena is the incarnation of the Goddess of Luck, she is not the Goddess of Luck, to be honest. And the Goddess of Luck will not be so flat. In short, Shilin looked a little strange in Olena's eyes now. Olena lowered her head in embarrassment. Big brother. Seeing Shilin's gaze on Olena, Katarina was a little dissatisfied immediately. His own appearance not as attractive as this human. What's the matter? Shilin regained his confusion and asked. Katarina's mouth puffed up when Shilin was doing nothing. She still likes the time she used to be in the Flame Mountains. At that time, Big Brother was the only one beside himself, and Felicia Big Sis didn't even have any competitiveness. Now there is one more Olena. It's okay. Katarina put her head aside. She was angry, and the consequences were serious. Shilin was a little dazed at seeing Katarina like this. What kind of trouble was Katarina? Why was she suddenly angry? Shilin couldn't figure this out and didn't bother to continue to struggle, but turned around and said, there seems to be something in the idol, let's go in and take a look. Yeah, Katarina hummed softly. Olena thought the atmosphere was a bit strange now. Inside the idol, the dark surroundings did not obstruct the vision of the two dragons, but Olena's eyes were dark. My Majesty, I can't see clearly, Olena said cautiously. After Shilin heard it, the flames on his body gradually rose and burned, illuminating the surrounding scene. Now they are in a void, seeming to have entered another realm. It's so high, Olena swallowed. Underneath is a bottomless abyss, only darkness. This made Olena, who was afraid of heights, almost fainted. Shilin could feel something in front of him was attracting him. Big brother, I feel danger. Katarina said suddenly at this moment. The gift that belongs to her alone, the premonition of the gods broke out. The reason why it didn't happen before was because of the dragon scales that Daniil left behind. Now the power of the dragon scales has disappeared, and only Shilin can be trusted. This talent will only occur when there is a goal that Shilin can't solve. Is there an enemy ahead that I can't solve? Shilin originally wanted to go all the way, but now he is told that the front is dangerous and you can't beat it. But after thinking about it, there is lightning that Zeus discarded on me. This can solve opponents below the demigod level. Isn't Katrina's talent predicting systematic things? Or is there an enemy stronger than a demigod ahead? After thinking about it, Shilin felt that it was an adventure. If there is such a powerful enemy ahead, there is no reason that giants can live so long. It seems that Katrina's hunch talent cannot predict the system. It's okay, I'm in Catalina, Shilin said confidently. I understand, big brother. Katarina smiled immediately, suddenly feeling relieved. Big brother has never lost so far. It was like this before, it is still like this, and even more so in the future. He will always believe in big brother. The two dragons continued to fly in the void, and soon a ray of light lit up in front of them. Great, Olena said with joy. I can finally see the light. After everyone entered the light, they came to a dead mountain full of bones. The bones of monsters are piled up here, some bones are even as tall as the dead giant, but they are still dead here. And at the top of the pile of bones, there was something shining. That must be the real treasure, Big Brother, Katerina said excitedly. Shilin nodded, while still focusing on the surroundings. Where did the danger come from? Let's go up. Shilin first flapped her wings and flew upwards, followed by Katerina. Oh, let me see, it turned out to be 2 giant dragons, one red and one silver, and a human being. Oh ooh. It's a weird combination. Suddenly, an ethereal voice came from all around. Countless black mists flew out of the skeletons, and finally condensed and formed in midair. A cloud of black mist resembling a human figure was giggling in midair. Who are you? Shilin asked without fear. He has Zeus's thunder and lightning, enough to deal with a demigod opponent, so he doesn't panic at all. Now he just wants to know if this black mist is worthy of him to use this artifact. Me, it's too long ago, I don't know who I am anymore, as if I am one of the skeletal souls in it, this one. No, this one. Or this one. The black mist floats above each skeleton, seeming to identify own corpse. Name, none. Creature, mixture of resentment, chaotic evil. Attack, 1300 ordinary juvenile red dragon 300. Defense, 1000 ordinary juvenile red dragon 200. Speed, 3000 ordinary juvenile red dragon 150. Physique, none ordinary juvenile red dragon 350. Item, Reaper's Heart God level. Magic, 5 rings undead magic. Talent, none. Ability, endless black mist. Evaluation, a mixture of death souls gathered by the heart of death, full of the thinking of countless creatures, leading to mental confusion, physical attacks cannot harm him, and elemental magic must be used. For unknown enemies, Shilin habitually dropped a system to check. In case of indecision, check the system. Unexpectedly, the other party turned out to be a hybrid, or was created by the heart of death. It's just that Shilin doesn't know what the death heart is. After all, there is no record of the heart of death in the dragon clan's memory. The only certainty is that this is a god-level treasure. The best thing in his body is a demigod treasure. This monster mixture actually has a god-level treasure, which really makes Long jealous. Ah, it doesn't matter. Every time I think of these things, my head almost explodes. The ethereal voice of the mixture reverberated in the space. Then the mixture paid attention to Shilin again. It looks like you have already solved the giant. Do you know giants? Shilin asked. At this time, he was comparing the strength of the two sides, and in other respects he was not inferior to him. It's just that the speed of the hybrid is too fast. What if he runs away with the hands? He really wants to take a look at the heart of death. Of course, we have lived here for 1,000 years together. That stinky guy always wants to eat me, but he can't catch me. Every time I think of his funny and unwilling look, I just want to laugh, oh roar. The hybrid seemed to be a little nervous, laughed at every turn, and the laughter was unusually harsh. From the mouth of the hybrid, Shilin knew some clues. First of all, the relationship between the two parties is not as good as they thought, but the giant wants to eat the hybrid, but only magic attacks can work on the hybrid. I have to say that the hybrid is simply a giant nemesis. In this world, there are 2 races with the strongest physique, one is the Titan giant, and the other is the dragon. Among them, the body of the Titan giant is stronger than that of the dragon. But there are pros and cons. The dragon is proficient in own dragon language magic. But the Titans know nothing about magic, they only use fists and feet. Therefore, giants are often played around by dragons. But the physical defense and magical defense of giants are extremely high, which leads to battles between giant dragons and giants, which are basically 50-50. Unless the opponent's strength is crushed, it is basically impossible to tell the victory or defeat when encountering at the same level. This is why the hybrid is the nemesis of giants. The giant wants to deal with the hybrid, unless they go to the dwarf to make a magical equipment. It's a pity that the giant in this has long lost his reason, and coupled with the reasons for being trapped here, it is impossible for him to get magic equipment. You should be here to get the treasure of the god of death, right? The mixture asked with a grin. Shilin looked up at the top of the bone and said, yes, it's on top of the bone. Yes, but if you want to get it, you have to play 3 games with me, otherwise I'll hide it. You will never find it. Oh ha 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 ha. The mixture shook frantically in midair, as if the next moment own body would dissolve. What if I don't want to play, but want to kill you? Shilin's eyes turned sharp, like a sharp blade about to be unsheathed. Kill me. Come and try, I can't die anyway. The hybrid seems to be very confident in itself. After all, the giant hasn't hurt it at all for thousands of years, causing it to be a little overconfident. What you said, if you have the ability, stand still and don't move. The corners of Shilin's mouth rose slightly. Okay, come and try. The mixture simply flew to Shilin's ass, teasing Shilin's dissatisfaction with the spiked dragon's tail. Shilin turned his head slightly and glanced at the mixture, which floated in front of Shilin again. I'm standing here, come on. The body shape of the hybrid suddenly expanded a bit, for fear that Shilin would not be able to beat it. You really owe it. Shilin was still thinking about whether to use dragon's breath or magic. Looking at it now, if he didn't use the domineering lightning magic, he would be sorry for this hybrid. Big brother, kill him. Katarina had long been displeased by the sight. No one has ever been able to tease a dragon like this. Your Majesty, come on. Olenna said weakly on Katarina's back. She was quite afraid of this kind of ghost creature, just as terrible as the ghost of the older generation. It's really annoying. Why don't you give me cheer? The mixture began to play with the child's temperament again. It's worthy of being a thinking mixture of countless kinds of creatures, really just like a lunatic. Theroroth Thunder. CCC. The moment Shilin read the thunder magic, the flame on his body became more violent with the appearance of thunder and lightning. A blue-violet arc rushed out of the body with flames, turning into a thunderfire, and the violent thunderfire spread to the surrounding air. The mixture closest to Shilin was lightly touched by thunderfire, and he felt a tingling and painful sensation. Not good. The mixture had a bad feeling and just wanted to leave. Boom. Roar. The light of thunder and fire rushed straight into the sky, and then suddenly turned into a roaring thunder dragon, opened his huge mouth of the formidable thunder, and swallowed the mixture in one mouthful. Babble. What? The crackling sound rang through the thunder and lightning, accompanied by the screams of the mixture. Terrible. Chop you to death. Katarina looked excited. If it weren't for her own thunder magic not to be strong, she would have been unable to hold it down for a long time. Shilin's lightning magic still contained flames, and the combination of the two violent powers could not last long for the mixture. The screams of the mixture only lasted for less than half a minute, and then they lost their voice. Only Thunder Dragon's body was still shining with white light. Finally, the power of magic disappeared, and a black beating heart appeared where the hybrid was originally standing. Item. Heart of Reaper. Level. God level. Function. If you have it, you will bid farewell to death, and only the gods can completely kill you. Origin. The heart of the god of death was originally the heart of the god of death Thanatos, and was taken out of his chest by the sun god Apollo during the Battle of the Gods. Farewell death. Shilin's eyes narrowed, that is to say. It hurts. I decided not to play games with you. I want to eat your soul. The heart of death, which was still in place, suddenly burst out with powerful vitality, and the dead mixture gradually reunited by the heart of death, and came back to life. Shilin wanted to escape, but after thinking of the hybrid's intention, he abruptly stopped preparing to retreat. The hybrid was a little confused when seeing Shilin's movements, but he quickly got into Shilin's mind. Detected that an external force is trying to invade the soul of the host. Do you fight back? Yes, Shilin said without hesitation this time. When the mixture just entered Shilin's mind and was about to swallow it. No, why is there such a presence here? The hybrid seemed to have seen the most terrifying thing in the world, and turned around to run out of Shilin's mind. At this time, a white light penetrated the body of the hybrid, and the black misty body disappeared, leaving only the death heart in place, but the hybrid could no longer be resurrected. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the heart of death. Is it carried on itself? Are there any side effects? Shilin was worried about the point. After all, it's something that the eagle forced. What if there is a fraud? Please rest assured the host, the side effects have been cleared by the system, and the host has two choices. 1. Let the heart of death swallow the heart of the red dragon. You can transform into the red dragon of the necromancer, with the same ability as the Black Mist, you can swallow the souls of others to strengthen yourself, and you will definitely become a god not weaker than the death. Second, carry the heart of death and the heart of red dragon at the same time. As long as it is not a one-shot kill, you can recover. When you are promoted to the gods, you can swallow the heart of death with the heart of red dragon to gain the ability of death. I have to say that the two programs Shilin given by the system are very greedy. The first one can greatly increase own survivability. The second is that there will be a lot of rewards in the future, the ability of the god of death, Tusk. In the end, Shilin decided to use the second option. After all, own mind can grow with oneself, and death's heart is only at the level of death. If you are an ordinary red dragon, you will definitely choose the first one. But owning the system is destined to surpass the god of death in the future. If you choose the first one, your own restrictions on late stage are too big. Fusing the heart of death. The heart of death suddenly burst into a fascinating purple-black color, and then slowly got into Shilin's left chest. When the death heart merged into Shilin's body, the red dragon heart on the right beat faster, as if he had encountered an extremely dangerous enemy. Bang bang, bang bang, bang bang. Roar. Shilin raised his head and roared. Unexpectedly, after fusing the death heart, he would be advanced. The next stage of the juvenile dragon is affected by the juvenile dragon, and he has to fall asleep. Obviously, this kind of place is not suitable for the dragon to sleep. Katarina, take Olena out, and go back to Noxus immediately. Shilin turned around and said hurriedly. Understood, Big Brother. Katarina followed Big Brother's words very much, and led Olena to leave the void. Shilin was spreading huge dragon wings. On his dark red body, there were still black lines at this moment, which looked domineering. Bang! An extremely fast figure flew over the bone pile. Shilin didn't even look at it, and swallowed the thing directly into On's second stomach, then turned and flew out of the void. Booming. The desert palace seems to feel the lack of treasures, and gradually shakes. It looks like it is about to collapse. Outside, His Majesty Katarina, will there be nothing wrong with your majesty? Olena looked nervously into the crypt and was about to collapse. Katarina was also a little worried, but she still said, don't worry, Olena, in terms of Big Brother's strength, she won't be buried. Desert Palace. Shilin avoided falling rocks and looked at the crumbling desert palace with a pity. Originally, he was going to use the desert palace as a new dragon's lair when he finished collecting the treasure. After all, there is no shortage of everything inside, there is also a beautiful palace and an empty space. As a result, once the treasure is taken away, the desert palace will collapse. Shilin's speed was like a rocket flying at extremely high speed. In an instant, he flew out of the desert palace and passed through the tunnel all the way to the top of the desert. Boom! The desert palace collapsed at the moment Shilin left. The entire desert surface was even dented hundreds of meters, like a huge crater that suddenly appeared. Big Brother. Katarina smiled and said that Big Brother's strength must be all right. Ha! Olena breathed a sigh of relief, almost thinking that something was going to happen to your majesty. But having said that, I am so worried about what your majesty is doing. I was forcibly snatched by your majesty, shouldn't you wait for your majesty to die? Well, rest assured that I'm fine. Shilin smiled slightly and shook off the dust on his body. During this trip to the desert palace, he was not at all disadvantaged only by the heart of death. What's more, there is still a big guy in his stomach now. Let's go. Shilin didn't notice Olena's abnormality, and led Katarina out of here. Now he must quickly return to Noxus to fall asleep, his own strength has to be greatly ascension. This time I went back faster. Because Shilin was in a hurry, he used a lot of wind acceleration magic along the way, and he returned to the territory of Noxus in just half a day and got into the dragon's den. Katarina, I need to sleep for a while, Noxus. I leave it to you. Shilin lay on his glittering gold coins, and closed his eyes eagerly, ready to fall asleep. When he woke up next time, he would have the strength of a young dragon. Understand, Big Brother. Catalina temporarily used the wood magic to seal the exit of the dragon's den to prevent anyone from disturbing Shilin. In fact, the only person she wanted to stop was Olena. This biggest threat exists. His Royal Highness Katarina, if you seal the exit, will your majesty the red dragon be unable to breathe? Olena no asked. Can't breathe. Humph, Olena, only weak human beings like you need air. Our dragon can fly in an airless universe, you know. Olena. Katerina looked at Olena with disdain. Unless there are restrictions on every continent, you cannot enter the universe without reaching the god realm. I see, Your Highness Katerina. Olena was frightened by Katerina's tone. She didn't understand why Katerina's attitude toward her was getting worse and worse, and she was clearly moving in a good direction from the beginning. As everyone knows, she herself brought a sense of danger to Katerina. HMPH, go, I will take you to practice new magic. Katerina became angry, but she was not stingy in teaching Olena. There is no public revenge. Instead, he gave Olena all the magic she knew, even though Olena is just a reluctant second-ring mage. 1 month later, storm, booming. A dark cloud gradually formed in the sky, and a storm carrying an electric current fell from the sky. Boom. A 10-meter deep hole was blown out of an open space, and the surrounding sand was all moistened and solidified. Hee hee. Olena wiped the sweat from her forehead exhaustedly. This was a 3-ring thunder magic, and she almost squeezed the magic in her body. Sure enough, using 3-ring magic is still too reluctant. Olena finally sat down on the ground overwhelmed and looked up at the sky panting. It's just a 3-ring magic, as for. Catalina was sitting on the side gnawing on the horned lizard, feeling a little speechless, as Olena acting for her. A 3-ring magic, that is not just reaching out. His Royal Highness Katerina, you are a great dragon, and I am a human being without the power of a chicken. How can I be like you? Olena also learned to welcome Katrina in this month. Anyway, don't fight against Katerina. After all, strictly speaking, Katerina is her magician. Ha, human. Catalina heard Olena's greeting. Tsunere put her head aside. In fact, she had already laughed in her heart, so she would boast more. It would be great if there was a magic wand. Seeing that Katerina's face improved, Olena turned her eyes back to her. The magic wand can not only help the magician save mana consumption, but also make the magic used by the magician faster and stronger, and can greatly increase the success rate of magic use. Some hard magics are not 100% successful. For example, undead magic, even the desert banshee sacrifices may not be 100% used in the battle. Unless it's the kind of simple magic. The harder the magic, the lower the success rate. Be careful to practice Tempest. Although this kind of low-end magic doesn't matter to the dragon, it's very suitable for your human 3-ring magician's common magic. Katerina swallowed the last few pieces of meat into her mouth and guided Olena. Yeah, okay, Your Highness Catalina. Olena quickly sat up again and recovered a little magic. She needed to consolidate her magic. Oh, you practice slowly by yourself, I want to sleep. Katerina is really boring. Big Brother said before going to sleep that without his permission, he can't attack the Wolfang tribe. Otherwise, with Katrina's personality, he would have killed Noxus long ago. After all, she wanted to give Big Brother a surprise before Shilin woke up. Watching the back of Katerina's departure, Olena gave herself a breath, and then went on to practice magic. The 2nd month. Storm. Boom. Yes, it's okay, it's finally okay to practice the storm. A 3-year-old cute little girl encouraged behind Olena. The little girl is wearing a silver tutu, her hair is silver, her feet are wearing red leather boots, and her eyes are blue like sapphires. Twinkling. His Royal Highness Katerina, why did you want to become a human? Olena was a little puzzled. That's right, this little girl is Catalina. Katerina suddenly thought of it this month. No wonder Big Brother likes Olena. It turns out that Olena is a human relationship. Does Big Brother prefer a human partner? Catalina, who had figured this out, directly transformed into a human form. It's just that Catalina is a young dragon, which causes her to become a human being with only the appearance of a 3-year-old girl. Humph, you need to control, the servant only needs to pay attention to himself. Katerina snorted softly and put her head aside. Seeing Katerina's appearance, Olena almost couldn't help laughing. It's so cute. Olena would never laugh if it was Katerina's appearance before, but now Katerina's appearance is really too contrasting. You are not qualified to laugh at my servant. Catalina scratched her head angrily, and the contrast of her look became even more lovely. Puff! Just when Olena couldn't help laughing. Roar! An arrogant dragon roar came from Noxus, and the dragon was awakened. Big Brother! Katerina immediately abandoned the topic just now and ran all the way with her own short legs. This is really. Olenna looked at Katrina's petite back. I was always called a kid by others, but now His Royal Highness Catalina is really a kid. Longshay. Booming. With Shilin's awakening, the entire space underneath was about to collapse. A pair of crimson eyes opened from the darkness, and the dragon's wings, as wide as a blade, unfolded directly. Boom. A great dragon rushed out of the dragon's den. The scarlet dragon's scales all over the body are like pieces of melted rock, exuding hot steam. The double horns on the top of the head swept backwards, and the crown-like embryonic form had begun to appear. The limbs are strong and powerful, and the posture is sturdy. The upside-down spikes on the dragon's tail are more upright, and the wings spread out as if they can cover the sky and the sun, bringing a huge shadow to the earth. Roar. Roaring dragons swept half of the Death Desert, and countless Noxus monsters knew that their emperor had awakened. Long live Death Wings. Long live Noxus. Long live Death Wings. Long live Noxus. Long live Death Wings. Long live Noxus. Quote. Countless monsters looked in the direction of Shilin and raised their own arms to welcome the emperor's return. Finally woke up. I don't know how long I slept. Shilin habitually shook his huge dragon head to make himself more sober. Host. Shilin. Creature. Red Dragon, Chaotic Evil. Attack. 3500 Ordinary Youth Dragon, Red Dragon 3000. Defense. 2500 Ordinary Youth, Red Dragon 2000. Speed. 2000 Ordinary Youth, Red Dragon 1500. Physique. 4000 Ordinary Youth, Red Dragon 3500. Items. Tiamat's dragon scales, demigod. Uranus's hair, demigod. Zeus's thunder and lightning, demigod. Magic. 1 ring magic known, 2 ring magic known, 3 ring magic, 204 ring magic. Talent. Superb physique, half god level, breaking potential god level, proficient in magic, spirit level. Abilities. Bite, tear, fire breath, frost breath, lightning breath, poisonous mist breath, acid breath. Evaluation. Now you have surpassed the threshold of the young dragon, and are moving towards the young dragon, and now you are only 3 years old. I didn't expect to become a young dragon queen. Own magic will be straightforward. Shilin looked at the panel and said with joy. It is known that as long as it is the first, second, and third ring magic known in the world, he can use it, and he is very proficient in using it, just like a great magician. The dragon battle basically ended in hand-to-hand combat, but Shilin wanted to be a special dragon. Become a melee mage. When you finally came to yourself in embarrassment, you found that my body is the greatest weapon. At that time, the enemy's expression didn't know how it would change. The two dragons of the same age basically ended up in hand-to-hand combat, and dragon whisper magic only occupies a small part. A young dragon knows the 4-ring magic, but the opponent is also a young dragon, and he also knows the 4-ring magic. Even if the two sides run out of magic power, they can't help each other. And the dragon has a quirk, such as the red dragon. Even if he is dead, he will not use water magic once. If Shilin faced a red dragon enemy in the future, he could use water magic to defeat the opponent by surprise. Who would have thought that a red dragon's water magic would be so powerful? The same is true for other dragons, absolutely not using elemental magic that they hate. Only Shilin is an alien. Speaking of which, I have been awake for so long. Where did Katerina and Olenna go? Are there a bunch of subordinates? Why are there only miscellaneous soldiers here? Shilin looked down and felt speechless. It should have been the first time to greet the own person, but at this time, one of them disappeared. Big brother. At this moment, a tender voice came from behind Shilin. Although this voice is nothing like Katerina, but the girl who can be called Shilin big brother here is only Katerina. Katerina, you finally. Halfway through Shilin's words, he saw a big-ass kid rushing towards him. If it weren't for the breath of Catalina on this guy, Shilin wondered if Olenna had a baby on her back. After all, in the entire Death Desert, Olenna is a human being. Except for the small town that is probably already empty. Katerina leapt vigorously on the spot, and her whole body flew out like a cannonball and came to Shilin's hand, rubbing her small face against the palm of Shilin's hand affectionately. Katerina, how did you become like this? The corner of Shilin's mouth twitched, and he couldn't do anything like this. What's the matter, big brother? Don't you like this look? Caitlin frowned in confusion, and it seemed that big brother didn't like own human posture very much. Is it too ugly? No, it's so cute like this, but, Shilin didn't know how to explain to Katerina, so he could explain it more clearly. Cute, then. Katerina blinked her eyes, like a star in the sky, exuding its unique aperture. Gone. Bang. Shilin landed on the ground, lifted Katrina up, and placed it on the ground. Your Majesty. Olenna rushed over at this time and swallowed as she watched Shilin's stalwart figure. Now Shilin's body has soared to 30 meters, with his wings spread out for more than 60 meters. Olenna's body is not as big as Shilin's paw. Shilin can be seen as a lying 12-story apartment, and Olenna is just a little girl less than 1.5 meters. Well, where are the 3 leaders, peeps? Shilin looked around and couldn't see their 3. Your Majesty, the 3 leaders are blocking the desert werewolves of the Wolfang tribe on the front line. Olenna explained hurriedly. Desert werewolf, resist. What is the situation? Let's talk about it. Shilin immediately heard the meaning of Olenna's words. It seemed that the desert werewolves first invaded and attacked Noxus. Then Olenna immediately told Shilin what had happened in the past 2 months. It turned out to be so. Shilin understood. A month ago, when the attackers were transporting wine, they encountered a group of desert werewolves and the 2 sides clashed directly. Because the attackers guarding the wine were not prepared, they were killed by the desert werewolf and robbed of the wine. And one of the attackers was lucky enough to hide in the sand and was not found. The attacker who survived told Peeps the story. How can Peeps bear this tone? This is challenging the Blade tribe, and even the great Noxus. So Peeps led the attackers to the Lengya tribe without saying a word, and the result can be imagined. Conflict broke out between the 2 sides. Due to the large number of desert werewolves, the attackers were beaten back again and again. As Noxus monsters, Ramos and Saman could not sit back and watch. So the conflict between Noxus and the Wolfang tribe broke out. Katerina needed to guard the sleeping Shilin, so she didn't go to the battlefield. In addition, there are too many desert werewolves in the Spike tribe, and the 2 sides are in a stalemate, and no one can help each other. However, according to the latest intelligence, Noxus now has the upper hand. After all, there are not only the attackers here in Noxus, but also the Sandman and Dragon Turtle, the armored dragon that makes the desert werewolves a headache. If such Noxus couldn't beat the desert werewolves, Shilin would literally scold these 3 tribes for eating rice. Desert werewolf. Interesting. I was going to take the desert werewolf together, but I didn't expect to send it to the door. There was a trace of boredom in Shilin's eyes. No one could ever attack Noxus. Only Noxus invaded others. Go. Shilin grabbed Catalina and Olenna with a paw, and marched towards the front line. Front. Kill. For the great Noxus. Long live Noxus. The attacker threw down a desert werewolf and ate the body of the desert werewolf frantically. But the desert werewolf has a wooden helmet, which prevents it from biting through the desert werewolf's neck. The desert werewolf smiled coldly, turned his head to bite the attacker's neck, and cut off the attacker's head with a sharp claw and raised it high. Is this your Noxus? Waste. Ramos, Saman, did you hear anything just now? I seem to have an illusion. Peeps widened his eyes in surprise, and he just seemed to hear His Majesty's voice. Ramos shook his head and stood up and said, No Peeps, you heard me right. Our Majesty has awakened. Yes, I heard it too. Saman said excitedly. This long and persistent battlefield is about to end. Ha ha ha, cubs. The great red dragon is awakened. After receiving affirmative reply from Ramos and Saman, Peeps was excited about Shilin's awakening. News spread throughout the battlefield. What? Your Majesty is awake. Ha ha ha. Your Majesty is awake. Kill. Wild dog. Our great Majesty is awake. You are here in the end. The monsters of Noxus directly more than doubled their fighting power after hearing that Shilin had awakened. On the other hand, the werewolf was beaten by the Noxus monster, which had suddenly become extremely tough. What's the situation? Why are these miscellaneous hairs suddenly violent? It seems as if they said that His Majesty the Red Dragon has awakened. Is there really a red dragon? The military spirit of the desert werewolf began to shake. Before the war started, Peeps once said in front of all the werewolves that there is a stalwart red dragon behind us in Noxus. It's just that Jacob, the leader of the desert werewolves, didn't believe it at all. If there was a red dragon, he would have invaded their Wolfang tribe with the most resources. Since the Langya tribe is close to the Far East, they are very close to the nearest real forest. A lot of food and resources are taken directly from the forest. Much better than the other monsters in the Death Desert. The most important thing is that they exchanged equipment from the goblin, which is also the most important reason why they beat Noxus back and forth. The monsters in Noxus are almost naked on the field, and only a more powerful command is qualified to wear inferior wooden armor. No way, it's not that Noxus doesn't want to wear armor to all monsters. It is true that the desert forest trees are too scarce. If deforested, the last few desert forests will disappear sooner or later. At that time, Noxus really ushered in the end. The desert werewolves have no scruples. They regard their own desert forest as their home, and they take their equipment and other things from the nearest forest. Don't panic everyone. These fools are talking nonsense, they are lying to us. If there is a red dragon, why hasn't that red dragon come yet? I don't believe that someone peeing on top of the red dragon's head, he will be able to bear it. Sitting in a high position, Jacob looked at the troop that was shaking, and hurriedly stood up to stabilize the military. The equipment on his body is more luxurious, no longer ordinary wooden armor, but silver armor. This is what he bought from the goblin for food. Goblins don't make war armor, they are very cunning and like to dig holes. He prefers to hide in the battlefield between humans. Once the battle is over, he will immediately show up to pick up the battle clothes and weapons of the dead. Adertisement. Once you get the suit, sell it to monsters who need it but don't build weapons. The goblin's strength is very low, but the monsters will not kill him. After all, a steady stream of goblins is needed to steal things from the human battlefield. The most important thing is that the goblins are not greedy, they only need food, they are less than half a meter in size and eat very little. Jacob specially used a nearly 7-meter-long horned lizard in exchange for this armor. I have to say that it is still very profitable. The desert werewolf who was being beaten back steadily reacted. Yes, if what the Noxus group of monsters said was true, the red dragon would have come over long ago. We were deceived. Let's rush. Kill. The desert werewolves struggled to fight back. It's just that Noxus is different now. His Majesty the Red Dragon wakes up, and they no longer fear. After encountering the desert werewolf, all monsters gave up their defenses and exchanged injuries for their injuries. They are bound to die together with the desert werewolves. This made the desert werewolves at a loss. Jacob, have the ability to come down and singles out. Peeps jumped out from behind again and shouted at Jacob who was sitting on the sand slope. 1-on-1, haha. Jacob's feet were slightly bent, and then his body ejected like a spring and landed in front of Peeps. Bang. Are you sure you want to go heads up with me? Don't you ask the other two wastes to play together? Jacob very disdainfully looked behind Peeps, where Ramos and Salmon stood. What did you say? Ramos almost couldn't help jumping out. Fortunately, Salmon stopped Ramos in time, and now Peeps' plan is to stop Jacob. And the two of them can get on the battlefield to reduce the losses of the cubs. So they must not be impulsive. Cut. Seeing that the two leaders were not brought out, Jacob even more disdain, a bunch of cowards. Enough Jacob. This is our heads up. Peeps saw that Ramos was on the verge of rampaging, and immediately scolded Jacob's taunt. 1-on-1, haha, I will make you regret it. With a strong wave of Jacob's hands, the 30-centimeter-long claws ejected, exuding a faint cold light. Click. Peeps' appearance also changed greatly, and the purple crystals all over his body reflected the scorching sun in the sky. Wow. Jacob howled up at Sirius, then swiftly turned into a white light and rushed towards Peeps. Boom. Peeps' forelimbs crossed the two scorpion clamps, blocking Jacob's claws. Time. Jacob's claws left a deep wound on the Peeps' pliers. Blood. Jacob greedily licked the blood left by Peeps on his paw, and the blood of the enemy boiled all over his body. What a sharp claw. Peeps can feel the pain of the scorpion forceps. No wonder the whole Death Desert says that werewolves' claws are sharp, as expected. The general blade of own defense can no longer be broken, and it turns out to be like tofu under the claws of the desert werewolf. Jacob, Now your majesty the red dragon has awakened, and you will be able to come here soon, and you have another chance to surrender. Peeps shook the blood bead on the scorpion clamp. The desert werewolves are very powerful, so they should join the Noxian Empire. Che, Noxus, I think it's a joke. Jacob mocked. What Noxus, isn't it being crushed by the Spike tribe now? Peeps was completely angered by Jacob. You can say that I am not good, but you can never say ill of Noxus, because behind him is the red dragon. Ha ha ha, become angry from embarrassment. Jacob was about to attack again. Roar. The roar from the sky swept across the battlefield, and all the monsters seemed to have been suspended for time, staring at the sky dully. The sudden roar just now shocked their weak souls. The soul feels like it will be gone at the next moment. This. Jacob's pupils suddenly widened, and he had a foreboding. Sure enough, at a moment, a stalwart red figure appeared on the edge of the sky, and the sky behind him was rendered into a majestic fire cloud. It's not good. That's a dragon. Woohoo. Run. Wow. All the desert werewolves panicked. They were brave and good fighters a second, and the next moment they became beggars in embarrassment. Did I let you go? Shilin's heavy voice came, like a huge mountain pressing on the shoulders of the desert werewolves. Countless desert werewolves knelt on the ground, unable to straighten their feet. This is long way. Bang. The huge figure fell on the ground, raising a thick dust. Grains of sand slapped on the faces of the werewolves, making their faces sting. I heard that when I was napping, a group of small wild dogs jumped out and they tried to mark the Noxus site for peeing. I don't know if this happened, the leader of the Dogya tribe, Jacob. Even if Shilin had never seen Jacob, he easily knew Jacob's identity using the system. You were really a dragon. Jacob knelt on the ground with a plop. He didn't know what to say. A tribe dared to invade the dragon's empire. This is simply looking for death. Humble and dirty wild dog, you can enter Noxus if you want. It seems that you didn't put the noble red dragon to put in one's eyes. Shilin placed Katerina and Olena on the ground and stepped forward. Click. What? The terrible Longway was even more coercive, and directly crushed Jacob's legs, causing him to suffer unbearable pain and cold sweat. Shut up. I don't like listening to dogs barking. Shilin growled. His voice was like devil's roar in the underworld, chilling, and he couldn't raise any resistance in his heart. Jacob hurriedly closed his mouth, trembling all over his body, enduring the pain of broken bones in his legs. He was about to be crushed to death by this dragon. Shilin's dragon pupil looked around, and the monsters of Noxus were in a panic, but the desert werewolves of the Spike tribe were all dressed in equipment. Looking around, Shilin could see it. It's not that Noxus's monsters are too weak, but the equipment is too poor. The enemy is all muskets and cannons, and we are all melee infantry. How could it have been fought? Can maintain this situation now is considered a strong point of Noxus. Peeps, what's wrong with your paws? Shilin asked faintly at the blood on Peeps's pliers. Your Majesty the Great Red Dragon, my scorpion pliers were injured by a dog's claw. Peeps looked at Jacob with cold eyes. Really? Shilin looked at Jacob again. Is that you? Asshole. Great dragon, we really don't know your existence. If we know, we will not come to your territory. Please forgive us werewolves. Jacob knew that if Shilin was not pleased today, the Spike tribe would have ceased to exist. Werewolves, aren't you a bunch of miscellaneous dogs? Shilin's right hand ejected a curved sharp claw and pressed it against Jacob's back. The sharp claws quickly cut through the silver armor like mud, exposing Jacob's tight flesh. Yes, we are poodles. Jacob was terrified. He didn't want to die. He finally sat in this position. Shilin turned his head to look at the wolves lying on the ground. Whoever killed Jacob, who is the new leader of the Wolfong tribe, joins my empire, Noxus. For a while, the werewolf who heard Shilin's voice raised his head and lit up those vicious green eyes. The werewolves present could see that Shilin wanted to let the Wolfong tribe join Noxus. It's just that Jacob's performance irritated Shilin. Now Shilin actually gave them a chance to kill Jacob and become the new leader of the Spike tribe. This is simply a step up to the sky. Wow! A sturdy werewolf pulled out the blade hanging from his waist and rushed straight to Jacob. Bang! Jacob's head fell into the sand. The werewolf threw away the blade in his hand, and held Jacob's head with his claws. the great lord of the Red Dragon, the humble stray dog presents you as a gift. Quote, "What's your name?" Shilin never expected this werewolf to be so decisive. The other werewolves were just thinking about it, but he didn't say anything else. "Your Majesty, I am your most loyal wild dog, Mutu." Mutu said respectfully. He was originally the most powerful contender for the next werewolf leader. The leader of the Lenya tribe does not step down when he reaches his age. Rather, there is a battle for the leader every 3 years. As long as the werewolves who are strong enough to be recognized by other werewolves, they have the opportunity to challenge the leader. If he wins, then he is the next leader. This is why Mutu's equipment is no less than Jacob's. Mutu, Shilin remembered the name. I hope your words will be the same as you said. What I need is an obedient and loyal wild dog. The person you are referring to, even if it is a god in the sky, Mutu will give him a bite. Mutu raised his head, revealing his green eyes. The gods care about him to die. Anyway, he didn't pronounce the name of the gods, and he was not afraid of the gods' revenge. Right now, in front of his eyes, there was indeed a creature that was not weaker than the gods, the Red Dragon. Shilin smiled slightly and tapped the ground lightly with his paw. Mu Tuxin understood, and immediately stood up and shouted, "From today, our Spike tribe has officially joined the great Noxus." While roaring, Mutu did not forget to lift Jacob's head high. Wow! All the desert werewolves raised their heads and howled at Sirius, expressing their own opinions. All members are willing to join Noxus, only hope that the dragon can forgive them. Where did your equipment come from? Shilin asked what he wanted to know the most. Noxus lost in equipment too badly. His Majesty. Mutu then told Shilin the origin of the equipment, and by the way also told the goblin news. Goblin. Ha, really a bunch of clever little guys. Shilin laughed. The goblin is very smart. Do you think he is really not a rare treasure? He can exchange equipment with treasures, but the risk factor is too high. The opponent will come back halfway if he doesn't keep the balance. With the strength of the goblin, it's totally impossible to beat the opponent. The food exchange is just right. The other party will not regret it because of a piece of food. The main monsters also know that long-term cooperation is king. The desert forest in the Death Desert is too scattered to be commanded. Shilin now has a desire to move away from the desert forest where he originally lived, and put Noxus's position on the side of the Spike tribe. Because the location of the Lenya tribe is in the east, very close to the nearest forest. The woods of goblin life are densely planted. In other words, if there are goblins here, the surrounding environment must be very good. And after Shilin moved Noxus to the Wolfang tribe, the entire rear of the Death Desert can be used to raise monsters. This is the real monster heaven. Peeps, Shilin called out. Peeps heard His Majesty's shout, and hurriedly knelt next to him and said, "Your Majesty, what is your will?" "Get ready, Noxus is ready to move, and the location is set in the Spike tribe." Shilin ordered. "Yes, I understand, Your Majesty." Peeps has nothing to say about this. In the eyes of the monsters, it doesn't matter where the center of the empire is. If the empire does not fall, it will always stand in their hearts. Peeps turned around and informed them of the matter, and asked them to lead the cubs and wives to the new Noxus center. "Big brother, what are they doing?" Katerina looked a little confused. "The people lived there well, why did they move out again?" His Majesty Katerina, Your Majesties will must be right. Olena believed. Of course, he is my big brother," Katerina said proudly. Now Shilin has no dragon to replace in Katrina's eyes. There has never been a dragon that can establish a Red Dragon Empire 3 years after she was born, at least in her dragon family memory. Even their mother, Daniel Gulong, established the Red Dragon Empire after she became an adult dragon. That year, Danny was 1,000 years old. "Katerina, are you really going back to the dragon?" After Shilin finished handling the matter, he looked at Catalina speechlessly. "I just think Katerina is so obedient." Boom. As soon as the voice fell, Katrina's body slowly increased, and the sharp dragon horns broke through her forehead. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.